And with that, let's welcome Brooke Pryor to the show. Brooke covers the Steelers for ESPN.com. She is their Pittsburgh beat writer, and she was kind enough to join us last year. We had a blast with Brooke. And did she freeze, Steve? Nope.
No, she's there.
So frozen by our expert analysis that it froze on the screen. But Brooke, how you doing?
I am great. I am very much not frozen. I am sprinting in to talk with you guys after just being in two scrums talking to Matt Canada and Terrell Austin.
Oh, good. Empty your notebook. What did you learn?
To me, the most interesting thing was, they have both coordinators going at the same time, but Matt Canada started a little bit before Terrell Austin, so I was in his scrum. And he normally starts off with taking some questions, and instead he went right off with a statement and talked about how they started off with 5 3-and-outs. That is not acceptable. Here are all the things that went wrong. We were down 20. This is why we were not running the ball as much. I mean, it's hard to say that he took accountability for it because that's what a coordinator is supposed to do. I don't want to say that he went above and beyond, but I was at least impressed that he didn't sit there and wait for all of us to ask questions, that he did address it off the top, that their offensive production was not anywhere near where it was supposed to be or where it had been during training camp in the preseason.
Did he give you a why?
I left the scrum before that, unfortunately, before I got the why. Instead, he was just talking about how a lot of it was what the 49ers were doing, and the execution across the board was off by the Steelers. I also thought it was interesting that Kenny Pickett talked about his lack of execution, not being on the same page with some of his receivers, some throws he wanted to have back, because the whole preseason, he and the rest of the offense had talked about, wow, guys, look, we're so cohesive. This offense is so much farther ahead of where it was this time a year ago, and then it very much was not when they got out on the field. But I talked to his quarterback coach, Tony Rasiopi, who said it was the perfect storm of Kenny Pickett having an off day and the 49ers having a really good defense, and then he just, had a dud of a game.
Brooke, it came up on replay, obviously, that Kenny took a pretty big shot to the head. Has that been discussed post-game, why he wasn't evaluated, and where does that stand?
It was discussed in Mike Tomlin's presser. I believe he said that he thinks Kenny Pickett was evaluated and cleared, that at least it was something that was looked at on the sideline. He kind of downplayed it. I don't know that was the right thing to do, to downplay that, given that Pickett had 2 concussions last year, and this has been a serious issue across the league. But, Kenny said that didn't affect his accuracy, and Mike Tomlin said the same thing. So you can, take what they said at face value. I probably would have liked to see a little bit more evaluation, but, that was what they went with.
Well, Brooke, what do you think the upside, like Kenny Pickett got so much hype based on preseason, which was mind-blowing to me. What do you think the upside is for him? Like, do people in Pittsburgh think he could be a top 10 quarterback? Because I don't see it. Like, I look at him and I see best case scenario being Andy Dalton or Jimmy Garoppolo. What do you see? What do they see?
I don't think that anyone here thinks he's going to be a top 10 quarterback. And the reality is he doesn't have to be. He just has to be able to get the ball to his playmakers. And he wasn't able to do that in that week 1 loss. And so I think that you don't want to throw out the term game manager, because that just really takes on a life of its own. But I think what he needs to do, he doesn't need to be Joe Burrow. He doesn't need to be Patrick Mahomes. He doesn't need to be Josh Allen. He needs to get the ball to guys in space, his playmakers, and let them do the rest of the work. Even George Pickens, who, when he does target on a deep throw and Pickens is one-on-one with the guy, George usually comes down with it. But he also, in the preseason, we saw, had a catch that, I don't know, maybe it was about 10 air yards or so, and then he made a move and ran the rest of the way. He can get yards after catch. Guys like Calvin Austin, Deontay Johnson, who's hurt, I would not expect to see him play, but all of the guys in this wide receiver room and the running backs can pick up the extra yards after Pickett makes a short throw. I think that is the key for them. It doesn't need to be, look at this arm strength. All he has to do is be accurate. Doesn't have to be a top 10 quarterback, doesn't have to light the league on fire, but he didn't do anything close to that because his accuracy was so off and the field vision was so off last week.
Brooke, what is the temperature of Steeler Nation on the Browns? Are they going on, or do they feel like it's just the same old Browns? Has anything changed since the week 1 win against the Bengals? Where are they in the spectrum of, what they feel about the Cleveland Browns in general.
The fan base is going to feel how the fan base is always going to feel, right? But I think that the Steelers organization inside the building very much respects the Browns. I mean, that was the first thing that Mike Tomlin talked about when he's going through and diagnosing. He likes to do his basically reads a speech on the team. He filibusters us on the opponent. And the first thing he mentioned is Nick Chubb. He calls him Mr. Chubb. And he's right. I mean, I think this is a team that there is a lot of respect there. Because Nick Chubb is the barometer of this game. If Nick Chubb scores, the Browns are far more likely to win. And I forget what the exact stats are, but it heavily favors the Browns when Nick Chubb scores versus when he doesn't, or I forget what the number of rushing yards is. But basically, if he has a good game, the Browns are going to win. And I think the Steelers are very much aware of that. And added to that, being even more difficult, is now Cam Hayward's out for this game and probably about the next 2 months, dealing with his groin injury, having surgery for it. And now they've got a lot of young defensive linemen that are going to have to hop in there and, stuff the run. And that's not going to be easy. So this is a team, it's not the same old Browns. They are by no means penciling this in as an easy W, anything like that.
Brooke, you talk about Deontay Johnson not going to play. Allen Robinson, at least for 1 week, looked like he was back from the dead. I mean, the guys looked like he was completely shot for the last 3 years. And he had a good game. Are you buying he's hit a fountain of youth here, or is it just a one-game anomaly?
No, I mean, if it's a one-game anomaly, then I don't know what I was watching through training camp. I mean,
okay.
he looked very much rejuvenated in training camp, and I think it helps that he doesn't have to be the guy. He just has to be part of a complement of receivers, and it was a deep group, but it was deeper when Deontay Johnson was your number one or number two. Right. It was deep. It was very much a front-loaded receiving group, and now I think the distribution of targets is going to be changed a little bit. Allen Robinson will get more involved. I think this leads to Calvin Austin being more involved, and I would expect to see Gunnar Olszewski active on Monday. So I don't know that Allen Robinson is playing like he's like 22 again, but he does seem to be kind of reinvigorated here in Pittsburgh.
What's the latest on Pat Freiermuth? I know he was in and out of the game last week. He was a little banged up. Is he good to go? Are they expecting him to play?
Yeah, I would expect him to play. I think he's a guy that's going to be limited early in the week because that's how the Steelers tend to word things, that, they're going to let participation be their guide. But I would expect to see Freiermuth practicing toward the end of the week and playing on Monday.
When you look at the game plan, overall, the Steelers, would like to have a running game, especially with Pickett being a younger quarterback. They have Pickens on the outside, but, you can't just throw the ball up to them every single play. When the Steelers have been really good and giving the Browns headaches, they've always had a run game that was very difficult to stop. Excuse me. What do you think they'll try to do when coming out and establishing a run against the Browns?
I think that they have to get the run game going because they absolutely did not have it going last week against the 49ers. It was so bad, it was non-existent. I think Najee Harris had less than 40 yards rushing. And part of that was what Matt Canada started explaining in that opening salvo that he had, where they were down 20 so quickly that they just, threw the ball to try to catch up. But they can't afford to do that against the Browns. I think that they have got to establish the run because that will then naturally open up the pass. I think that this offensive line is better than they showed against the 49ers. I think the 49ers were easily the best defensive front that they were going to go against. Not that the Browns are anything for them to turn their nose up at. The Browns are obviously a very good defensive team, but I think that they have got to get Najee Harris going, and I think they need to use Jaylen Warren more, not because he's better than Najee Harris, but because I think that he is a really good complementary back to a change of pace guy. He's a little bit faster than Najee when he gets out on the edge. And so I would expect to see them kind of ground and pound earlier in this game because they spent all offseason telling us we are a team that's going to run the ball. And then they didn't do that in week one. So I think they're going to kind of hopefully not overcorrect it, but I think just maybe go back more toward being a more balanced offense.
So, Brooke, we just came out of Cleveland here with a rain game last Sunday where Deshaun Watson and Joe Burrow both played below the level we'd expect, and we'll say it's because of the rain. I see there's potential rain in the forecast in Pittsburgh on Monday, and the big knock on Kenny Pickett coming out of college was he has tiny hands. So if Joe Burrow and Deshaun Watson struggled with a wet football last week, should we expect kind of the same with Kenny Pickett if the rain comes through on Monday night?
Tiny hands.
I mean,
tiny hands.
The tiny hands thing is so overblown, especially when you consider this guy played at Pitt for, 10 years it felt like in college. I would not be worried about the small hands. I think they are, yes, they measure small. That has not been a factor in the NFL, so I would expect him to play fine in the rain. I don't think he's going to light the world on fire, but I don't think he's all of a sudden going to have like the SNL Kristen Wiig, tiny hands, can't hold on to a football.
Tiny hands. Brooke, let's wrap it up with this. A couple of weeks ago, I went to Pittsburgh to see the Cubs and the Pirates, and the parking there sucks. What is happening with the park? The parking by the stadium is a disgrace. I had to park in some lot. It was like off the side of a highway. I thought I was going to get mugged getting out of this lot. Why is the parking so bad in Pittsburgh? What happened?
Oh, I would love, listen, if you come up with a solution, please write letters to the Pittsburgh City Council or whoever comes up with parking, because it is atrocious.
Yes.
I will say, though, the media parking has always been the same. There's 2 different lots. I'm up parking across from a Taco Bell, which means there is a little bit of a walk, but then the post-game snack is really easily accessible, so I'm not going to complain about it.
Fair.
There is, you always
I'm with
find
you
the
on
silver
that.
lining.
I'm
Hey,
with you.
Brooke,
Thanks,
thank you
Brooke.
very much for your info. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.